Hi, this is Hannah, and today we're going to the National Cemetery in Seoul. We quickly got distracted by some sweets in front of the National Cemetery, but we quickly moved on, and as you can see, it was really crowded. There's so many people going to the National Cemetery to view the cherry blossoms. So first, we're just going to walk around and enjoy all of the beautiful scenery, and then we'll settle down and do some painting. Now it's time to set up, and first we're going to take a little bit of a rest. And we bought these manju at the subway station. They're corn manju. They're really good. I think this was the main thing I was looking forward to. And some energy drinks. Now it's time to go over my supplies. I brought some pencils and some micro pens. I brought this tiny palette that I bought. I think it's the star of the show. It has 8 spots for colors, so I have burnt umber and some primary colors. This is my water brush pen. Here's kind of like a nib pen, but it has an inkwell. And here's my hwahong brush for detail, and it's a couple of erasers in case I want to sketch. This is a square paper and my little sketchbook, and we're ready to go. So I'm just going for it. I didn't really plan anything out. I've never used like a tiny palette out in public like this before. I wasn't sure how well the palette would work, like the little mixing area seemed too small. But I just kind of dove right in. The colors that I brought with me were burnt umber, I believe it was ultramarine blue. I brought 3 different reds and 1 bright yellow and yellow ochre. So for the shadows, I'm kind of thinking blue, and for the warmer areas and more of the sun in areas, I'm thinking to use more of the burnt umber. It's still kind of not that green grass right now, so we have some kind of yellow grass. For the cherry blossoms, I had a hard time kind of deciding how warm or cool I wanted them to be, because really they're not bright pink, but I think, for the sake of the drawing, I definitely did go a little more pink than they are in reality. I'm not really going for realism here. So I'm just sort of bringing them in, and then I'm bringing in some darker pink for shadows. Again, shadows would probably be more like gray or brown, but I think it's more beautiful in my case to make it more pink and more red. Now I'm just adding some final details to the trunk to add contrast. And I finished it really quickly. I was really happy with this. It went beyond my expectations, frankly. For the next painting, I decided to start with a sketch. I went way too big on the previous one, and so I thought maybe if I laid out a sketch first, I could more accurately get the proportions. And I also used the larger paper. However, despite the fact that I laid it out, it still was not the right proportions. The branches go out so far, and it's not something I really was accounting for. But I'm still going to go forward with it, and I'm being a little more thoughtful this time, and maybe a little too precious, I think, because I was so happy with the first one. I think it was a little hard to go into the second one because you kind of want it to come out better, or at least just as good. But again, I'm thinking more about the shadows because of how it worked last time. I'm using more blue in the cool shadow areas and more of the ochre, yellow, and the burnt umber in the areas where the sun hits. And I'm trying to translate this into the branches as well. So let's just watch as I try to make this more accurate, but it's still not as accurate, painting of the different cherry blossom tree. Now it's time for the cherry blossoms again. And again, I'm trying to think about how bright I really want them to be. I went pretty pink on this one. There is a species of cherry blossom that's different than the ones that I featured in this video that is kind of more like bunched together flowers, and they're definitely brighter. That's not what is featured primarily in this video, but that's okay. Again, I think that we are allowed to do what we want with our art and we don't have to be slaves to realism. It's definitely helpful in the beginning to try to draw what you see, but it's always good to remember that you can make things your own. So I really want to get more cherry blossoms in this one. I think they're pretty full, frankly, the trees, and there's a lot of overlap over the branches, so I tried to use white to go over some of the areas and obscure some parts. I don't think it totally worked, but I'm happy overall with how it came out. Now I'm going to bring some detail into the branches because there's so many little spindly little branches that come out of the main ones that I think add a lot of depth and detail to the real cherry blossom trees that I wanted to try to bring in. When I went in for shadow, again, I didn't go for like a more blue or gray. I used a darker red and a slightly more subdued red to bring in the shadow. Again, that's not really what you see in reality, but it's what I decided to go with. And she is done, at least with the watercolor part. I couldn't help myself. I felt like I wanted to try something different. Since I had started with pen, I decided to go back in with micron pen and add more details to this one. It hadn't come out as lovely as I had hoped, so I kind of just wanted to try something different. So here's the finished one with the pen. It doesn't look anything like the tree that I drew, but that's okay. I think the details are okay, but I frankly think the watercolor might have been nicer. So for my last painting, I really wanted to get the proportions right, so I decided to paint really small. So it didn't record very well, so you see more of me painting on this one. But to add some fun, I brought my luminescence paint and I added silver to the cherry blossoms, and I didn't go as dark. And so I think this one's nice in its own way. So final thoughts, I just want to have as a reminder that this is a cemetery and it is a place of solemnity and remembrance of people who were lost in war. And even though it has this park attitude or ambiance or feeling, it's still ultimately a place that should be respected. And there was occasionally recordings saying, remember that this is a cemetery, not a park. But I had a great time viewing here, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Bye.